Cuyahoga County Public Works Procurement and Contracting Committee meeting for Wednesday, February the 1st, 2023 will be called to order. Roll call.
And just as a reminder to all who are in attendance, this meeting is being recorded and live streamed on the county's YouTube page. Calling the roll, Mr. Tuma.
Here.
Mr. Miller.
Here.
Ms. Conwell.
Present.
Mr. Sweeney.
Present.
Ms. Turner. Ms. Turner is absent. There is a quorum.
All right, thank you. Is there any public comment this morning?
No, Mr. Chair, no one is signed in.
And could I have approval of minutes from the January 18th, 2023 meeting?
So moved.
We have a motion. Do I have a second? I'll make it. Okay, we have a second. Motion is second. All those in favor say aye. Aye. Opposed, nay. Ayes have it. And Madam Clerk, if you could please read the first matter referred to committee this morning.
Resolution number 2023-0022, authorizing an assignment and amendment to an agreement with 5-Star Aviation for lease of land in a corporate hangar facility at the Cuyahoga County Airport located at 26500 Curtis Wright Parkway, Highland Heights.
Okay, and if you could just please state your name for the record.
Excuse me. Good morning, Mr. Chairman. John Myers with Department of Public Works. We are here today seeking authority to enter into an amendment and an assignment, approve an assignment of a lease at our county airport from 5-Star Aviation to HHR LLC. This is an assumption of the current existing lease, which runs through 2033, and giving 3 additional options, which would take it out to 2054. The original term is the assignment part through 2033. Everything stays the same except some additional perks or benefits to the county. We have essentially initial payment upon execution, upon your approval and execution of this agreement of $300,000 upfront from this HHR, and also return of what was under their current lease, control of exclusive apron area that would have run out through 2033 that now returns to the county in the present time. At 2033, at that point in time, there would be a determination made of fair market value by an independent appraiser to set the valuation. There would be an increase in the fuel flow, and for whatever that new rent is determined in 2033, there are annual escalators of 2.5% for the remainder of that term. At the second term, there would be another determination of fair market value for both the ground and the building with 2.5% escalators and an additional $100,000 cash payment and an increase in the annual fuel flow rate of $27,500. For the third or last 5-year term, the fuel flow would be increased to $30,000. That 2.5% would continue, in addition to their obligation to maintain the building in a first-class business manner. They would have to invest an additional $100,000 in improvements in the building. This is standard with our airport leases, that they're multiple decades long. These are ground leases that we're talking about. So what's immediately before you is an assignment of that ground lease. The building is not owned by us, nor do we have control of the building.
Question as far as the length of the lease. I mean, what if our like, you know, goals and what we want to do with the county change over that? That's a very long lease, and we're not used to seeing leases that long. So, how do you account for that length of time?
Well, in our other transactions, we're not used to that, but first of all, this is a ground lease, so that's a distinction. Second of all, at the airport, this is the standard, is multiple decades long, particularly when we're talking about ground leases.
Okay, and then this might be a better question suitable for law, but the assignment and the exercise of the options, they're 2 separate legal actions. Would it be standard to have them both in one piece of legislation? Is that okay to do that?
This is Jerry Zubrotowski from the Law Department. In this case, we reviewed it. It's the same subject matter, and it's kind of going to the same purposes. Like the options are, or the renewal terms are part of this whole deal, so it makes sense to the Law Department.
That's fine. Appreciate that. And then during the term, is there an opt-out clause or ability to reassess if things change?
There's not on our part, no. This is they brought the security in. This hangar was, we had an assignment and assumption that was actually introduced, but it fell apart because the owner who was just taking the assignment couldn't get financing because it was just for this 10-year period. So that's why when we came back to do this, additional time was needed to rationalize the purchase, lending, private lending for this, for the investments to be made in the building and for the purchase price. So that extra term was needed. So the vendor here needs that term for financing purposes to be able to rationalize, justify.
Okay. Is this, I don't know if you said, I might have missed, is it a revenue generating?
Yes, I'm sorry if I didn't make that clear. It's all revenue generating. The county owns the land, and this helps fund the operations of the airport.
Don't we usually put that in contract when, in the terms of the amounts? Because I didn't see that.
I don't know that we've used those terms always in a revenue generating agreement. I think it's made clear because we're the landlord, they're the tenant, that they're the ones paying the money to the county. So
What are the payments?
right now, that what the assignment is approximately in excess of $50,000 per year.
Per year, okay.
And the determination in 2033 will be made at that time to determine what the fair market value would be in real time then. So we're getting full value at that time.
Okay, and then does the county have the ability to prevent any lease assignments in this, or?
Only if we had some serious objection. We have to approve any assignment unless we have some serious reservation about who the assignment's going to go to or their capability or ability as a tenant or some other issue that would be of concern.
Okay, and then just to clarify, the lease runs through 2054.
Correct. There was a discrepancy
Okay.
between the legislation written, I don't know if it was a typo.
Yeah, just a clerical.
But the actual term that we're seeking authority for is through 2054.
Okay. I'll open the floor up to any questions from my colleagues. Mr. Miller.
So, I always get a little nervous about legislation that extends farther than I am likely to be on the planet. But a couple of questions. What happened to Five Star Aviation that this lease is being assigned to this new entity?
Five Star Aviation was a successor to MBNA, essentially, were the main force behind this hangar, which the main force behind MBNA was the Lerner family. And just to, where they're deciding to primarily keep their family and corporate jets. Personal decisions to the company and the family.
So they're moving their stuff to a different location?
Yes.
And so then they found a new entity that's willing to take over this lease?
Correct.
And,
Excuse me, Mr. Miller, I'm sorry, is your mic on?
it is. So, once we get past 2033, am I correct that the extensions are at the leasee's sole option, that we don't get to say yes or no? Is that correct?
Mr. Chairman, to Councilman Miller, yes, essentially. We don't have the ability to deny them the extension unless for some good cause.
And the structure seems to assume that the Federal Reserve Bank is going to be able to get inflation rates somewhere around the long-term target of 2%. But if that doesn't occur, and if in 2023 inflation is roaring at 5 to 7% a year, and the escalators would clearly be insufficient. Do we have any recourse about that?
Mr. Chairman, to Mr. Miller, no, I'm sorry to say, but we will be, at 2033, the determination will be made, what is the fair market value in 2033? So if the Fed isn't able to get things under control, all of that for the next 10 or 11 years will be taken into consideration, and the county will be protected. It is true for those following years that the escalator would only reflect a 2.5% increase, which is a pretty actually standard common number, and we're hoping that 7, 9, and 10% inflation rates are not typical into the future, so there is an assumption there. Secondly, this is an annual escalator, so regardless of the inflation, it's going on each year, not just at the beginning or end of the term, and so each of those years are compounded with that 2.5%, and then it's 2.5% of the base plus the 2.5% plus the, so there is some recognition of that. Thirdly, at the additional renewal term, at the second renewal term, there is another snapshot of fair market value as the base. So if you figure during that first 10-year period, that's 15% over that entire time increase, and then we would be updated again at the end of that first renewal term.
And how long are renewal terms for?
In this case, it's structured 10 years for the first and then 2 5-year terms.
Okay. So after the first 10-year renewal, then there would be another snapshot on the fair market value.
Correct.
Okay.
Thank you, Mr. Miller, and thank you for letting me have an existential crisis moment, with 2054 being the end date there. But I figured, I did the math, I'd be 84, so there's hope. That 10-year renewal, though, I don't know if I'll be around for. Mr. Sweeney.
Thank you very much. And just on if inflation is totally under control and it's zero, like it's been for a while in the recent past, we get the 2.5%. So it's just
Correct.
It's a guess out into the future. And listen to my colleague, it's
not a complete guarantee, Mr. Chairman and Mr. Sweeney, you're correct. It's some hedging and some protection offered, but.
yeah. And your explanation through Dale's stimulation was just very well thought out, and I appreciate having a fuller understanding now. So I appreciate my colleague and your answer.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Any other questions or comments? So as far as the timing element on this, what are we looking for? As far as
We're fine with your standard processes, Mr. Chairman.
okay, I'll make a motion to move this on for second reading. Do I have a second?
I'll second.
I have a motion and a second to move R 2023-0022 on for second reading. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Opposed, nay. The ayes have it. All right, thank you. Ms. Clerk, Council Clerk, can you read the next piece of legislation?
Resolution number 2023-0023, authorizing an award on RFP 10475 for a purchase and sale agreement with Genesis Global Holding in the amount of $680,000 for the disposition and sale of county-owned real property located at 13231 Euclid Avenue, City of East Cleveland.
Okay, and if you could just please state your names for the record.
Sure. Once again, John Myers from Public Works, and joined by.
Jessica French from Public Works.
Okay, and if you want to just explain this piece of legislation here.
Mr. Chairman and committee, we're here today on behalf of Public Works, on behalf of the Board of Developmental Disabilities, excuse me. As you may remember, the board is a separate entity, but under Ohio law, we have had title to their properties. So we're involved in the process. They have had some change in programming and other impacts, federal law changes, et cetera, that have impacted their delivery of services. And so they no longer need this particular facility, which was an adult training center located at 130th block of Euclid Avenue in the city of East Cleveland. So Public Works essentially, through Jessica's hard work, was involved in setting up a public bidding process that sent this property out to community and the marketplace to determine highest and best use and value for it. And we're here to present and recommend authority to enter into a sales agreement with Genesis Global Holding LLC, who we believe presented the highest proposal and the highest value and the best proposal.
Okay, appreciate that. And it's my understanding that Genesis Global is based in New York. Do they have any other properties in the area?
We also have, in addition to having our representatives from the Board of Developmental Disabilities for any questions, we also have Attorney Jennifer Wintner, who is a representative of Global, and I'll turn to ask her that question
Okay.
just so I don't screw it up.
All right, thanks for being here, and if you could just state your name for the record.
Good morning. My name is Jennifer Wintner. I'm the attorney and consultant for Genesis Global and its nonprofit affiliate, Olympic Foundation.
So it's the, but, they, as far as the property here, though, that's what that is?
Yeah, they
Oh,
have
I'm
another.
sorry.
They do
Okay.
have another property
Okay.
in Cleveland.
All right, I just didn't understand how you phrased that. Okay, appreciate that. And then just again for either someone from Public Works, I think this, what is the current zoning in that area? And will there be any need to change the usage?
Current zoning is based on the BODD facility, so it's an exempt, and
Okay,
as a result, it will have to be changed for mixed-use development.
okay. And then will it need any construction or refurbishing in the building? And if so, what's the timeline on that?
I'll let her answer, but yes, there will be much construction.
All right, if you could just kind of give us a brief explanation as to what needs to be done in there.
There are two main phases for the project. The first one is getting the existing building operating, and it will need some work on it. We still don't know exactly how much because we haven't completely firmed up the uses and what the tenants will need. But we hope to have it occupied this summer at the latest. The second phase is construction of 2 apartment buildings on the vacant land area, the current parking lot fronting on Euclid and the green space that fronts on Lockwood. So that will be, we're estimating now, over $40 million of new construction, which we would hope to start within the next 2 to 3 years.
And then I guess this might be more for someone in Public Works, but or the board, will the Board of Developmental Disabilities be selling other properties, or is this?
Yes, there are 2 other facilities that actually just closed and are yet to be scored, one in Brooklyn and the other one in Euclid.
Are there less need for the services, or is this just consolidation of resources?
Due to federal direction, their BODD is not allowed to operate these facilities anymore. They are now, it now has to be a private company, and they can only oversee. As a result, private companies sometimes close certain facilities due to profit or proceeds, so.
Okay, and I just want to make sure that, we're not shortchanging an area that, of need, just for monetary reasons. Any questions or comments from colleagues?
Currently, this property is vacant.
Okay.
And now it's just operating costs for BODD. They're just paying security and
Got it,
things
thanks.
like that.
Mr. Miller?
So I have 2 questions, and the first one is if we could get a little more description of what the intended use is going to be.
Okay, that's a great, and then we'll let you answer that question, and then, I'm sorry, if you could just state your name and if you wanted to add something. I know you had something you wanted to state.
Hi, Sarah Kamak from the Cuyahoga County Board of Developmental Disabilities. I just wanted to clarify that because of a change in the Medicaid rules, we were no longer able to operate these facilities. And then there has been sort of a change in the way that people utilize day programs, especially as a result of the COVID pandemic. So the individuals who previously attended day programs at this facility have been moved to other facilities of ours. So nobody is missing out on any services.
Okay, no, I appreciate you hearing that. Okay, if you want to just proceed, thank you.
So the future use is mixed-use development, which includes housing, which is most of it being affordable and moderate housing, community centers, as well as retail facilities. There is discussions with a grocery store to include some sort of grocery option, which seems to be needed in this area. There's not a lot of fresh options in this, I guess, realm, part of the city.
Okay.
And my second question is when the proceeds from the sale are received, does that money stay with the Developmental Disabilities Board, or does Cuyahoga County receive that money because we're the owner of the property?
For the sale, the Board of Developmental Disabilities receives the proceeds.
Okay, Mr. Sweeney?
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Thank you for coming and presenting this to us. To the representative of the development, if you don't mind coming up, it's just, there's a zoning need, right, to change the use. Is the city of East Cleveland embracing you?
Completely. We're working very close, we have been, prior to even submitting the proposal. We've been working with the mayor, his executive assistant, and others in the community. We're also working really closely with the county land bank.
Perfect.
They're developing in East Cleveland, we hope, so are we, and we're trying to do it. And we've already initiated conversations about zoning.
That's good. And then through the chair, buying a piece of property without the proper zoning is sometimes a challenge if the municipality is unaware of it or they're not embracing it. And my thoughts were, if it's not and it doesn't move forward, you own the property, sometimes it gets left to decay. And it doesn't seem like that is the case at all, so that's the
No,
reason.
in this case, I'm not even thinking about zoning as an issue.
Good, because as a prior councilman in Cleveland, you think about zoning
I know.
regularly when you close out deals, so forgive me for assuming.
No, I appreciate it because on other projects, it has been almost a deal killer.
So, thank you, and the investment in East Cleveland is just wonderful. I think it's moving in the right direction, working with the Land Bank and entities like you, so keep up the good work.
And also, thank you, Mr. Sweeney. Along those lines, I did have a conversation with Councilwoman Stevens, and she said she indicates her support for the redevelopment plan for the site there, and she supports the legislation. So I just wanted to make that clear as well. Any other questions or comments? Ms. Conwell?
Through the chair, just wanted to know what was the timeline, estimated timeline for the finished product?
We're hoping to have the existing building at least partially occupied this summer. And we do need to get it stabilized to make sure that it's moving forward. And at that point, we're going to start, we've already started some planning on the residential buildings, but we'll take that on more seriously in terms of getting financing. Right now, we're still looking for financing just for the existing building, although things look very positive in that area.
And you said that the housing component, that will be separate structures, that won't be in the structure that's already
I'm sorry?
housing.
Yes.
That's going to be separate structures, it's not going to be?
Yes, it is.
Okay.
It is.
Thank you.
Okay, any other questions or comments? Okay, seeing none, I'm going to move this along. I'm sorry, Mr. Myers, you have something?
We are requesting second reading suspension if possible. BODD is currently paying for both security and operational expenses that are in the thousands of dollars a month. And so we just appreciate if we can get this moving forward so that they don't have to have that burden anymore.
I'll make that motion. If no one has any objections, I'll make a motion to move our 2023-0023 on for second reading suspension.
Second.
We have a motion, a second. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, nay. Ayes have it. All right, thank you very much. Appreciate that. Next up, we have an update on the Cuyahoga County Energy Participation Program, and we have Mr. Reimer here to do a presentation. Mr. Reimer, I'll open the floor to you.
Good morning, Mr. Chairman. Good morning, council members, committee members. So I do have a presentation that'll be coming up here. Thank you, Janine. And Mr. Chairman, my name is Matt Reimer. I'm the Facilities Design and Maintenance Administrator for Cuyahoga County Department of Public Works. I'm also joined by my team on the facility side, our Chief Section Architect, Christine Petro, and our Facility Energy Manager, Mr. Gerard Solomon. Also with us today for any program or market-specific questions is our expert from Palmer Energy, Mr. Kirkland Mazurek. Kirk is the Palmer Energy account representative for Cuyahoga County and others in the County Commissioner Association of Ohio's Service Corporation's energy program. So they are the contracted program manager for CCAO Service Corporation in the administration of this program for member counties in the state of Ohio. So I'll probably be bringing him up depending on the questions from the committee.
Okay.
If I can switch slides, I apologize. Green button, right, Janine? Yeah. Okay, as background, and as a refresher to some committee members, I don't recall if I've ever briefed this program with Councilman Sweeney, so this may be a new program briefing for you, sir. But we established County Ordinance 2019-0010 in 2019, which established our participation in the CCAO Service Corporation's Energy Participation Program. This is for natural gas and electric accounts that we have with the CCO program that we've historically bought through through the CCO and along with other member counties for group buying opportunities for getting better pricing on those utility accounts. Underneath the program so far, we have purchased in 2019 natural gas basis contracts and associated hedge quantities throughout the life of those contracts. In 2021, we also made the purchase for our electrical supply contract. These are for all of our utility buildings with the electric utility as the illuminating company, First Energy. And we also I'm briefing you today on natural gas basis contracts that were effective in November of 2022. I'll be briefing you on those. And for the upcoming electrical supply contract to take effect with June billings here in 2023. So that's my purpose for being with you today, to provide an update on those two transactions. One, the completed transaction for natural gas in accordance with the ordinance, as well as pre-briefing you on the recommendations for the electrical supply contract to take effect here in mid-2023. As further background, we have other ways that we purchase utilities. Just so you have that in the back of your mind, we also the county has an electric supply agreement with Cleveland Public Power for a number of buildings in the downtown area, downtown Cleveland area. We have a solar power purchase agreement for the solar arrays that we have on 4 of our county facilities. And that's a separate contract. And we also have contracts with Corex Cleveland Thermal for a number of facilities that provides district steam and district chilled water to a number of our buildings. So that would be, the Cleveland Thermal would be in lieu of natural gas purchasing, where we have steam service, and the other electric buys would be in lieu of or in partnership with, in connection with the buildings that we have on the illuminating company as well. We don't have any, although solar is offered under the Energy Participation Program, we don't have any active solar projects with CCAO at this time. The first matter that I'm going to brief you on the program is the natural gas new basis contracts. This is a summary report of a transaction conducted in 2022. The effective dates of this program, or excuse me, this contract are from November 2022 through March of 2025, which picks up 3 winter seasons, and it's a 29-month term. That RFP was issued to 12 suppliers, and there were 4 supplier respondents. Our accounts are, the natural gas program with CCAO is much more statewide and regional versus the electric, which I'll get into later. So our accounts are part of a contract with these providers I'm about to brief you on with many other member counties and member county accounts. So just to give you that picture that we're part of the whole on on the natural gas program. We have two kinds of accounts within the program. One are choice accounts, which are generally our smaller consuming buildings with IGS Energy. This is the same provider that we were previously under the previous 3-year contract. Those buildings, just for your knowledge, are the Hilton, the Convention Center, our Harvard Yard facility, the medical examiner, animal shelter, Board of Elections, our Public Works facility at 1642 Lakeside, our Jane Edna Hunter and Virgil Brown Health and Human Services buildings, the Metzenbaum Center, and our Courthouse Square building. So these are all that are under the IGS Energy DEO Choice contract. We have another facility under the General Transportation Service contract with Dominion East, and that's with the supplier is Constellation Energy, also the same provider as in the last 3-year contract, and that is specifically for our Juvenile Justice Center at 9300 Quincy. So these contracts provide the basis pricing for supply, and then that plus the NYMEX gas supply hedge quantities in the market, which I've listed the table in the PowerPoint here. These are the hedge quantities that have already been pre-contracted for by the CCO program. In our review of the program, the county is only recommending 2 changes, and that's the addition of 2 accounts to account for recent acquisitions. So the building recently purchased at 2020 Lakeside for an expansion of the men's homeless shelter, and the building purchased at 3950 Chester for the relocation of the Veterans Service Commission will also be recommended to be added to this contract account. Before I go into the electric summary, I just wanted to pause and ask if there are any questions about the natural gas program overview that I just provided.
Any questions? Mr. Miller?
So, on this hedging table, I just want to make sure that I understand this correctly, that that we've purchased some of this natural gas in advance for the particular months indicated at the prices indicated, because we don't know what the prices are going to be in the future, and then when the time comes, when those months come, then we'll purchase the remaining amount that we need at the prices that are available at that time. Is that correct?
Mr. Chair, to Councilman Miller, with the limits of my understanding, I believe that to be correct. So the energy manager contracted by CCO is constantly looking at that market. They forward us market conditions monthly, and then they advise the CCO Energy Committee, for which we are represented by with Mr. Solomon behind me, and the Energy Committee with CCO then approves any other hedge quantity buys. Again, that's based on future trading in the futures market for natural gas supply. Yes.
So at this time,
I got the thumbs up that was accurate. Okay.
at this time, we can buy gas for 24 and 25 cheaper than we can buy it now, because the market anticipates that the current spike in prices is temporary, and that a couple years from now the price is going to be substantially lower. Is that a correct read on what we have here?
That is, based on the write-up that CCO provided us in advance of this presentation, yes, they have a current high-level mark right now with the market conditions, and that's an accurate description of the future outlook.
And my other question is whether you anticipate any activity in the future regarding solar. Through the chair to Councilman Miller, I haven't aligned myself with Sustainability Department on this yet. Right now, as you may know, we have a separate power purchase agreement for solar projects and a pending county utility stand-up. So at this time, I don't have anything that I expect that Public Works will be submitting through the Energy Participation Program, but that doesn't mean we couldn't make a future decision on it. Thank you.
Mr. Chair, if I may, I did forget one thing relevant to Councilman Miller's line of questioning. The rates that we are getting on this new 3-year contract are less than we were getting in, despite those hedge quantities that, when we talked about the current high point, our basis contract is about 12 cents per MCF less than the last contract for the basis portion of the contract. So that's a pretty substantial savings.
Okay.
And can you tell us what prices we're getting on natural gas that we're purchasing right now for what hadn't been hedged for the remaining portions? What's the current price running?
If I understand your question correctly, I can answer the basis contract pricing, which is the ability for the energy company to deliver the natural gas, and that is a difference of 12 cents per MCF, which in the previous contract was 48 cents per MCF, and in this contract is now contracted for 36 cents per MCF. And we have an MCF load of about 57,000 MCF in that choice account building portfolio that I mentioned.
So you answered a question, but it wasn't the question that I asked, so let me try again.
Right.
On this contract, for February of 2023, the current month, the chart says that we hedged 50% of it at $6.13.
I understand. Okay.
Which suggests that we have to buy the remaining 50% that we need, like right now, because the month is starting. And my question is what is the price that's currently available?
Through the chair to Councilman Miller, I understand now. Thank you for that clarification. I don't know the answer to that. I'm going to turn to Mr. Mazurek, see if he knows the answer, and if not, I will commit to getting you that response and follow-up. Kirk?
Yeah, sure. Hi, Kirk Mazurek with Palmer Energy, but I'm representing the County Commissioners Association today. Councilman, if you look at the March level at 50%, 544, March closed in the 270 range. That's where it's at currently right now. So we'd either go to the end of the month and get that additional at a lower price than what our initial hedge was, depending on market conditions. At this particular point, it's going to help to lower that WACOG average versus the 544 to lower it down significantly. We put a bunch of hedges in place last summer before a lot of the turmoil in the world came up. The price of natural gas went in the mid-9s at that particular point. There were thoughts that it was going to go even higher. So we got in much less from that at that point. And then with this very warm winter here, as well as a very warm winter in Europe, the prices have, to a positive effect, gone down significantly over the next couple months. But our hedges out for next year and the following year are still below what current market conditions show.
So,
does that answer your question?
I think so, if I understand it correctly. So what I'm understanding is that for March, we're going to end up purchasing half of what we needed at $5.44 because we purchased that in advance, and that we're going to purchase the remaining 50% that we need at something like $2.70.
Yeah, so generally speaking, yes. Now, depending on how warm the winter is too, don't forget that if you're not burning as much gas, maybe we're 60% hedged right now, maybe we're 40%. We've had a very warm winter at this point, so those hedges might be a little bit heavier than 50% at this point unless it gets really cold for the rest of the month.
Understood. We might use less than what was originally anticipated.
That is correct.
Okay, thank you.
All right, thank you, Mr. Miller. Any other additional questions at the moment? Nope. Okay, you can proceed.
Okay, I'm going to move to the electric utility. So just the distinction between what I just presented, I'm reporting out per the ordinance on an enacted transaction through the CCAO program. My next slide on the electric, I am pre-briefing you on the recommendations we intend to implement for an electric purchase that will be upcoming. So with the electrical supply, CCAO, Service Corporation Energy Manager, released an RFP for our 37 electric accounts that are serviced by the illuminating company utility. This is for the electric supply to provide those buildings with electricity. The RFP asked for pricing for 12, 24, and 36-month terms. By comparison, the contract that we're currently under with AEP Energy is a 24-month supply. That was based on the recommendations at that time in 2021, based on market conditions. So they sought pricing for 3 different terms. They also asked for different rate structures, an all-inclusive rate, which we are currently under, and a capacity pass-through rate pricing structure, which I'll get into here in a moment, and may call Kirk back up for that. The county, we've reviewed the CCAO Service Corporation recommendations. We recommend adding to the program the same 2 buildings that I mentioned in the previous slide, the recent acquisitions of 2020 Lakeside and the recent acquisition of 3950 Chester. And as documented in the ordinance, and as we've done on the last 2 electric supply purchases, we're recommending purchasing at a level of 100% renewable energy credits, which I can get into if there are any questions on that. The major accounts on this program, we have a lot of sanitary lift station accounts throughout the county. That represents the majority of the 37 accounts that are on the program. But the major buildings that are on, I've got shown on the slideshow, that's the animal shelter in Valley View, the Harvard Yard in Newburgh Heights. I apologize that I showed a picture of the Harvard Yard without the solar array. The Convention Center and the Hilton are all major accounts on this electrical supply program. Okay. What I'm showing now is a table that you can refer to in the future, but that is the results of the RFP. And for those that may recall how the electric supply contracts work, these are dedicated accounts. Although the RFP went out for 8 member counties under the CCO portfolio, the resulting contracts are specifically for Cuyahoga County and our 37 accounts in the program. So we will get a single contract with the resulting provider at the time of market refresh. So you're seeing we had 7 respondents to the RFP. They answered the pricing in both requested structures for the 12, 24, and 36-month terms, and you saw that we also got results from 3 vendors for the renewable energy credits at 24 and 36-month terms. I can go back to that slide at any time. But the recommendations coming from CCO for this RFP are, number 1, that the county consider changing its price structure of the electrical supply contract to a capacity pass-through structure for this contract term. That's to prevent risk of additional charges based on market conditions into the future, that we may see unchecked capacity pass-through charges come through in the contract term. So we're recommended to consider the contract, a capacity pass-through contract structure, the pricing structure. Recommendation number 2 is that we consider a 24-month contract duration. This is in consideration of the county needs too, where we may be standing up the county utility and have potential future microgrid projects in place. So the 24-month contract term is currently recommended. If we do, if something changes between now and refresh, to consider the 36-month option should something with the county's intended plan on microgrid and utility timeline be extended. But we'll proceed with the 24-month without that recommendation. Recommendation number 4, secure refresh pricing with 3 of the shortlisted vendors, which the top 3 vendors we're recommending are BP, Dynegy, and Freepoint Energy Solutions. As you'll see on the table that I mentioned from the RFP results for the 24 and 36-month and renewable energy credit terms, they were the lowest 3 respondents to the initial RFP. So that's why we're recommending those 3. This would represent a change in suppliers. As I mentioned, our current supplier is AEP Energy, which was more expensive in each of the 24-month and 36-month terms. Our last recommendation is that we provide CCO in accordance with our ordinance. The Director of Public Works will provide approval of the recommendations to CCO after presenting them to this committee, and we recommend proceeding with 100% renewable energy credit pricing. So we are right around the quick math, about $1.8 million, depending on the term and depending on the refresh that, 1.08 million dollars of what the cost of our electricity for our accounts will be. That is an increase from our previous contract, supply contract, because of the rates that were in effect at that time in 2021. I presented to this committee about a $630,000 account portfolio value last time. Okay, and so what are the next steps in this energy purchase for electric accounts? Next step number one, absent any disagreements from the committee, County Public Works will notify the energy manager to proceed with the refreshed contract pricing. So electrical will, they'll choose a refresh date. The energy manager has already forwarded us the draft contracts from the lowest three vendors. We will be providing those for review to law department, as we've done in the past, and they will provide red lines to those three respondents that will be refreshed. And then on the date of refresh, CCO will execute those contracts on that specific day. Following execution of the contracts, we'll be back here to the committee just to present out on the executed contracts to this committee and what the final pricing was received on the refresh date. And then lastly, we're near, believe it or not, we're nearing the end of this this program term. 5 years was what was enacted into the ordinance, and so we'll be working with the administration, law department, and council on consideration for renewal of our participation in the program. So this natural gas transaction and this upcoming electrical transaction are expected to be the last two in the current participation program, which would sunset in August of 2024. I do have one other special topic to present, but I just want to pause there if there are any questions about the electrical RFP recommendations.
So just to clarify, any new legislation or would have to come before county council before we move on to approving any?
For further sorry, Mr. Chairman, for not letting you finish. Yes, for any transactions that would be effective, that would take effect beyond that August of 2024, yes.
Okay, great. You can proceed.
Okay. Yep. Okay. I do have one, I'm sorry.
I'm sorry, Mr. Miller? Yep.
I'm not clear on capacity pass-through. Could you provide a little more explanation of what we're doing now and what we're proposing to do that's different?
Sure, I'll turn to Mr. Mazurek on that. Thank you, Kirk.
Councilman, what happens is everybody pays capacity. It is what it is. It's set on a yearly basis. Historically, the reason that we did a full deal last time was we knew what the capacity numbers were going out a few years. Right now, we're only aware of based on how the bidding goes for capacity through May of 2024.
So let's be a little more basic. I'm not sure
Okay.
what you mean by capacity.
Capacity, everybody pays it. Let's just say it's how big the pipe is through the electricity's running. Everybody has to pay capacity, whether you're at your house. It's in everybody's bill. It's roughly 2.5 mils, which is 0.2 of a cent to 0.3 of a cent. We only know through May of 2024 what that's going to be at this point, but the contract is going out past May of 2024. And if we chose to do it the old way, and this is why we recommend very strongly to do the capacity pass-through, if we chose to do it the old way and May of 2024 comes in much higher, you're going to end up having to pay that additional cost anyways. But if it comes in much lower, which again, we don't know yet, the supplier would have kept it because you had locked in the pricing already. So we feel that for that 2 mils or 0.2 of a cent, that it makes more sense to just be billed on a monthly basis on what actual capacity costs are. The other thing that I will offer to you, Councilman, is we have a write-up on capacity. I'll forward it on to Matt, and Matt can give it to you, and you can look at it at a different time to get you a little bit more in depth on what it all means.
Okay, thank you.
Does that work for you?
Okay, thank you. You can proceed.
Thanks, Mr. Chair. I wanted to conclude with a special topic. This is an information briefing on an area of risk that we're going to be working within county administration to solve, but thought it was particularly well-timed, one, because of the proximity of the the risk being realized, but also having the opportunity to present to you today. So at the Justice Center electric accounts are not currently part of the CCO Service Corporation account portfolio. That is because they are currently under contract on the Cleveland Public Power Electric Service Agreement that was awarded, I believe, in late 2017, early 2018. Forgive me for not remembering that that account contract execution date. For technical reasons and my words headbutting between utilities, we've been unable to convert the building to Cleveland Public Power underneath that contract. So the Justice Center currently exists as still being a illuminating company, First Energy provided utility building under their standard service offer. So that standard service offer over the last couple of years has been generally competitive with the rates that we've seen through the CCAO program. However, there's going to be a rate change that's expected, and we're being advised on this by CCAO Energy Manager in as early as June of this year that could potentially double that rate. And so we'll be working with council, with the administration in particular, and the administration with sustainability in the law department on how we mitigate that that risk of rate increase and how we deconflict the utility provided contracts related to it. So high-level statement on that. Happy to answer any questions on it. I will say that our alternatives are, we have several. Number one, we've been advised that we could put out a single RFP for the Justice Center to bring that building under a short-term contract and work out the specifics with both utility providers. We're also working for other reasons for redundancy of service, a project that could deconflict this through our capital program that would just make it easier to align the infrastructure with what our contract provisions say. But in any event, we're going to be working to avoid pretty much a doubling of our bill at the Justice Center over the next month or so, and we'll be reporting back out to this committee probably at the same time as we'll be reporting out on the new electric RFP. And I'm happy to answer any of your questions on that, to answer any of your concerns. We've had a chance to brief staff on this, council staff on this a couple months ago, but we'll continue to work this issue and brief council.
All right, Mr. Miller has a question.
So, since we have not been able to implement the contract with Cleveland Public Power, what prevents us from saying that we're just going to fold this one into the CCAO contract and add it like you did those other two buildings?
So that is certainly an alternative, Councilman. I would say that we've been advised by CCO that because of the size of this account going out on its own RFP would be a better alternative. I will say that doing so, I've already had a high-level discussion, very informal, with the law department, and we would need to deconflict that with our existing contracts, so that would have to happen behind the scenes. But more likely, the recommendation would be a single RFP for a specific term for the Justice Center, and then maybe we could align it in the next future purchase if possible. Yeah.
Do we still have obligations under the CCP contract or CPP contract, or since that was not able to be implemented, are we out from under that contract?
That is a question that we want to answer internally, Councilman, so that we can work with the city as well as understand our risk areas on that regard as also.
Okay, so we don't know.
I don't have an answer to that at this
Okay,
time.
thank you.
Thank you, Councilman.
All right, thank you, Mr. Miller. Mr. Sweeney?
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Thank you for the update. I wasn't here, but now I have a full understanding. Am I one smart aleck with this picture here? I thought it was boogie boards, but
yeah.
it's really hiding the people's identities.
Those are my graphic arts abilities to let the pictured be nameless, so I apologize.
No, don't apologize. You got me thinking for a second, and then I see the arms. Neither here nor there. Thank you. Just since Director Foley's here, I wouldn't mind hearing his this is wonderful operations of our energy. How does it work with sustainability? And are we tying our hands a little bit with your mission without any disrespect to our outstanding Matt Reiner doing his work?
No, Councilman, you're right, Matt is outstanding, so I appreciate that. We've been working with Matt in Public Works pretty consistently.
I'm sorry, could you just state your name?
Mike, I'm sorry, Councilman Tuma. Mike Foley, Director of Sustainability. So we're standing up, as Matt has said, this kind of utility work at the county. And we don't anticipate, we'll have these microgrid projects, we think, up and running, hopefully by end of 2024, 2025. It could be at some point, we'll be buying power off the grid for those utilities, and at some point, maybe we include our county buildings in those purchases, just for more scale and better pricing at the end of the day. So this kind of dovetails with what the work we're doing in sustainability and around the utility work.
Perfect. I just wanted to get, I know your passion and your drive, and in the presentation it said, I read when the microgrid's going, we're going to hop on and use it. That's how I interpreted it. And I just wanted to have the opportunity to talk about something that's you're passionate for and you're taking care of the people of Cuyahoga County.
Thank you, Councilman.
Thank you, Mr. Sweeney. Thank you.
Mr. Chairman?
Mr. Miller?
I have two additional questions. One is that if there were a worst-case scenario and we ended up having to pay twice as much for Justice Center electric supply, how much would that be additional on an annual basis?
On an annual basis, I'm going to turn to Kirk, but I believe he quoted us at roughly $1 million based on current pricing. Right now, our last billed amount at the Justice Center, we have several meters at the Justice Center which pick up all four of the main structures, the county courthouse and the Huntington Park Garage on those accounts. That was billed at $151,000 for last month's billing. So a potential doubling of that to $300,000 a month, so 150. And it's generally consistent at the Justice Center. There aren't big summertime peaks and valleys like you might see on your home in the summer months. Our electric utility is generally pretty stable over there. So it could be approaching $1 million, to answer your question.
And my second question is that First Energy is a regulated utility. How can they get away with doubling their standard service offer in a single shot like that?
So at this particular point, Councilman, what has happened is they go out in various tranches to find out what that number is going to be. There's roughly 30 to 40% of the usage for that number is out there right now. It's right around 11, 12 cents per kilowatt hour. It's just market conditions. They have to go out and figure out what the pricing is going to be by the various suppliers. There's been a number of issues over the last year that has increased the prices dramatically. I don't know that you can blame First Energy. Everybody's prices are going up dramatically based on, market conditions, worldwide market conditions. And then in the state of Ohio, there were a number of large government ags that jumped back to the utility that the suppliers weren't expecting. So this is going to get convoluted answer, but I'm trying to answer the best I can. And because of that risk, the suppliers are adding a lot of monies into the price to see that the price to compare in June will be somewhere around 11, 12 cents per kilowatt hour. And where Matt's talking about with your Justice Center, based on that flat load, we think that we can get somewhere in the 5.5 cent to 6 cent range, which, so if you do the math on 20 million kilowatt hours, that's where he's coming up with the approximate $1 million savings by doing something for this term.
Okay. Go to it.
All right, thank you.
That's the conclusion of our presentation, Mr. Chair.
you can
Happy to
proceed.
stick around for any follow-up
Okay, any
discussions.
other questions?
Questions?
All right. Seeing none, I want to thank you for a very thorough and detailed discussion, and we look forward to the county benefiting from a lot of the information you provided in practical terms. So thank you very much.
Thank you, Mr. Chair.
Is there any miscellaneous business before
Very briefly?
committee? Yes, Mr. Sweeney.
Thank you. Just in the tradition of Health and Human Services, I'd like to request that excuse the absence for Meredith Turner.
We have absolutely. We'll make a motion to excuse Councilwoman Turner. Do I have a second?
Second.
All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Yes, appreciate that. Any other miscellaneous business? I'm seeing none. I'll make a motion to adjourn. Do I have a second? We have a motion and a second to adjourn. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Opposed, nay. Ayes have it. And Public Works will adjourn at 11:05 a.m. Thank you.